Some of the heat detection programs, when we're talking about heat detection, it is the most limiting factor in an AI program. Properly detecting heat and knowing when to work off of that heat and knowing when to breed those cows. Estrus is the period of time that occurs every 18 to 24 days in mature, non-pregnant female cattle. The signs of heat are the receptivity to the mounting activity by bulls or other cows. It could be fluid discharge, so you will see some mucus discharge out of the vulva. A rough tail head would be an indication that an animal that has been mounted or ridden. Also some other signs, there could be some manure on the sides of them. Maybe the hooves rub the side of that cow, and so that's definitely a sign. They will become kind of agitated and restless. Bellowing, those types of things will occur. The head butting among cows. They just don't act normal. If you've got those cattle on feed, they will go off feed and they may not consume as much feed as well. You'll see bloody mucus about 2 to 3 days after the heat, the observed heat. A cow is only fertile when an egg is released from the ovary, and that egg is released about 10 to 14 hours after what we call the standing heat. And so cows should be inseminated in the latter 2/3 of that heat or within a few hours of going out of heat, and which is approximately 12 to 18 hours after standing heat. And so with that, we have a rule that we call the AMPM rule. So if ovulation occurs 12 hours after standing heat, this 12-hour lead time allows the sperm cells to go through capacitation by the time the egg is released. And so a general guide is, again, by the AMPM rule. So if the cow's first signs of estrus were in the morning, you ought to breed them that evening. Too late for good results would probably be the next day or 48 or 24 hours later. If it's in the evening, you breed them the next morning. Too late would probably be after 3 p.m. that day. So again, AMPM rule or about a 12-hour lag time gives you a good indicator of when you should go in and inseminate those cows. It's best and most successful is visual observation when you're observing heat. Estrus synchronization can aid in heat detection and shorten the days of observation. And so instead of having a cow observing cows over a 21-day period for heat, you can bring that down into like a 72 hours for observing heat and reduce your labor time there. It's best to observe heat early in the morning and in the evening, because that's typically when cattle are going to be out foraging and grazing anyway. Some of our heat detection aids, markers that chin ball markers were an old standby. So if you had a very active female that would mount a lot, or a bull that is deemed infertile, then you can put a chin ball marker on that bull, and when that bull mounts a cow, it's going to release that ink on the back of that cow, and that's an indication that she was in standing heat. We can also, a very simple, easy way, it's a method that I use personally, is on my cows is chalking or a paint stick. And so you paint the tail head of that cow up prior to when you think she's going to come in estrus, and then the actual mounting or riding by another female will rub that paint off. It will also, if those cattle have hair, if it's during the winter time, that hair will stand up as well. But a very good indicator and very economical way of heat detection, because those paint sticks are just a couple of bucks, and you can do, probably 15 plus cows with one paint stick. Other heat detection aids, here's a KMAR. This is an older product that's been around a long time. You glue it onto the tail head. It actually has a ink pack on the inside, and as that animal is mounted and pressure's put on that ink pack, as you can see in that picture there, the dye is going to be released, and it will be an indication that that animal was in standing heat. The challenge with these KMARs, I found, if you're in some areas where there's some lower trees or maybe some brush where those cattle can actually rub on, the rubbing, trying to rub that off, will actually make that Kmart turn red. So that can be a challenge. The same way with this is just a newer device. It's been out for probably 10 plus years. And all it is a sticker, and it's just like a scratch off, like you would see with a lottery ticket. And so the base coating is either green or orange or pink, and then over the top of that is the gray material, which is a scratch off material. And so as that animal is ridden, the rubbing action will rub off the gray, which is an indicator of heat detection. Again, on these two, you have to be careful if you've got in some brush or some trees. Those cattle can actually rub that, and it looks like you may have had one in heat, or actually rub them completely off by scratching. But these are very effective. They work well. They're about $1 a piece is what they're going to cost you. So a little more expensive than the paint stick, but still very effective. Here's a heat watch detection system. It's an electronic system that will send messages back to a receiver and then ultimately back to the computer, which is another effective way. These devices are fairly expensive, but they are very effective in heat detection as well. Some other things that we do have for heat detection, something that came along, I remember learning about it when they were about to come out. In my reproductive class in my college days was the Easy Breed Cedar. And it's a implantable device that is placed inside the vagina of the cow, and there's progesterone impregnated within that device, and so there's a slow release of that progesterone. And what that progesterone does is it will maintain a CL until it's removed, and we would see a regression of that CL either naturally or with a luteinizing hormone such as prostaglandin there. But the Cedars were very effective tools. Prior to the Cedars, we had another product we called Synchromate B, and a very similar tool, except for an implant was placed under the skin of the ear that also had the progesterone in it, and it was a slow release as well. The challenge with those is they were difficult to put in and even more difficult to get out because you had to pull it out. With these Cedars, they're very simple, they're very easy, they're very practical. Cost is around $10 per Cedar for a cow there. Just to show you some synchronization protocols here, and this is important, and there's a lot of different synchronization protocols out there. As you can see, the top one, the Select Sync, was just a GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. You provide that if there is a follicle that's about to rupture. The GnRH will go ahead and cause it to rupture, and then after that, the shot of prostaglandin will go ahead and regress that CL, and that's the period of time when you would detect heat. So there's a lot of different synchronization protocols out there, but the goal behind the synchronization protocol is to begin to take the hormones and manipulate them to make a cow come into heat or estrus in a shorter period of time. So a Cedar implanted into an animal will release progesterone, which will then maintain a corpus luteum. GnRH, if there's follicles present, it will cause a rupture of those follicles. Prostaglandin, administering it will cause luteolysis of the corpus luteum, which regression of that will cause ovulation after that. So again, we're trying to manipulate the normal hormone cycle to a way that we can close in and we can hopefully concentrate the number when those cows are going to be in heat within like a 72-hour period. Just going through a lot of different protocols here. You can see this was a Select Sync plus Cedar and observed AI as well as timed AI. This particular protocol, a GnRH is given. The reason the GnRH is given is because that will go ahead and regress or go ahead and cause ovulation so that we don't have an old CL there. You place the Cedar in, and the Cedar, what it does is going to maintain any corpus luteums that are present and hold that animal kind of in a standstill within their cycle. The prostaglandin, what it does is when you pull the Cedar, It will cause regression if there is a CL present and cause that animal to come in heat as well. And then you can detect heat for 7 to 10 days after that. Most of those cattle will begin to come in about 48 hours after you pull the cedar and provide the prostaglandin. You can do observed artificial insemination, and then about 72 to 84 hours after that, then you can go in with a timed AI, which also includes another dose of GnRH to go ahead and make that cow ovulate. So that's a very popular, probably one of the more popular synchronization protocols that we utilize here in the United States. Here's your kit, your AI kit. And this is a box that's designed for that. A lot of people will use a toolbox as well. But you'll notice in the AI kit, we've got a thaw unit, and that can be either 12 volt out of a power source within the vehicle, or it can be 110, which is just a typical plug like you would have in your house. You can see there's some tweezers to handle that semen. There's what we call the cyto cutter, or you could use scissors. We also have a box of sleeves, so we can go in and palpate and then manipulate that catheter. We also have some lubricant there, and it's a lubricant for those cattle. We don't recommend soap because soap is spermicidal. We also have the sheaths and the gun you can see in the top right, and we'll discuss those particular tools a little more in detail. So here's our cyto unit. It maintains the water temperature at 95 to 98 degrees. They do have to be calibrated, and you still need to check the temperature of these because sometimes the temperature can creep up on you on that, and then you cause some problems. You can also use just as simple as a thermos that has got the temperatures correct, the water temperature is correct, and it's a very economical approach as well. If you're artificially inseminating a lot of cows, these cyto units, cyto-thaw units work very well. You've got to cut off the end of that straw so that the semen can be deposited. And so as you can see, the cyto unit does a blunt cut, but also a pair of scissors, as you can see here, work well too. Thermometer is critical, and making sure that you've got a thermometer to either get your temperature correctly if you're just using a thermos, but also to monitor the temperature and your cyto-thaw unit that's more of an automatic thawing unit. There's your lube, your sleeves, as we talked about these go all the way up to your shoulder. And then here's your AI gun. And the way that the AI gun works is the straw is inserted into that gun, and then a sheath such as this is placed over that gun. And there's two different types of artificial insemination guns. There's the old O-ring style, which you can see in the top there with the two yellow O-rings. That's how I learned the actual tool that I learned on, and that's the one that I use today. The problem with the O-rings, you got to make sure you pay attention that you don't lose those O-rings, or when you pull that sheath off, that it does not, the O-ring doesn't go with it. And then the other type is the old spiral type, or the spiral type, and they work well. There's no O-ring. They're very efficient. Again, it just comes down to what your preference is. Both of them accomplish the same thing.